Yes. We are live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to start the evening out with our Code of Conduct hearing. And at this point, I'm going to turn over the evening to Tim, where he will explain the different points that we're going to discuss this evening.
Great. So those of you in attendance, thank you so much for joining us, and the board as always. So the main topic for consideration this evening is a hearing on our Code of Conduct. So there are essentially three subject areas that are being proposed for amended content in our Code of Conduct. One has to do with the dress code. One has to do with provisions about artificial intelligence and academic honesty. And one has to do with the allowability or lack of allowability of cell phones in the high school. So I will just go in order and just reviewing what the proposed changes are. And then after each policy, I'll give the board an opportunity to ask any questions or propose any suggestions, and then I'll move on to the next. So the first one I'll cover is the dress code. So the provisions that are for amendment in the Code of Conduct regarding the dress code are Section 3, ensure that clothing cover all private body parts, shorts, skirts, and skirts need to provide complete coverage of a student's exterior. And then at the latter half of the policy, towards the end, students who violate the dress code shall be required to modify their appearance by covering or removing the offending item, and if necessary or practical, replace it with an acceptable item. And then skipping the next sentence, in the course of the year, LPCSD may determine new fads and modes of dress are disruptive to a safe and orderly learning environment, and the dress code may be adjusted accordingly. And then the final paragraph. Lake Placid Central School keeps garments on hand for students who wear inappropriate clothes to school. We may have t-shirts for students so that they will not miss class instruction while waiting for parents to bring a change of clothing. We cannot guarantee that we will have all available sizes or that we will have something each student will like. Parents will be called to bring appropriate clothing when necessary. So that is all of the proposed changes regarding the dress code. Any questions, comments, or suggestions from the board on that particular policy? John?
Yes, I have a comment and a suggestion on item number 3. As I read this, and I apologize for being too nitpicky or nuanced on this regard, but as I read the second sentence of number 3, the first part says skirts, shorts, skirts, and skirts. And as I read that, I said, we have one gender neutral garment, which is shorts, and then 2 female exclusively garments. And I said, it seems like this article is written toward women and not toward men. And I said, I don't think that's appropriate. This dress code should be gender neutral. So I figured that the easiest way to maybe change that a little bit was to add the word pants as the first sentence, the first part of that sentence. So it would read pants, shorts, skirts, skirts. At least it changes a little bit in my mind the orientation to both boys and girls as opposed to girls. So that would be my suggested change. The second part, you may be amused by that. It has to do with the word posterior. People may chuckle at that, but given my kind of analytical mindset and biomedical background, that word kind of raised a red flag in my mind. And for the following reasons. One, the word posterior is an ambiguous term. It's an adjective meaning anything on the backside of somebody's body from the top of your head to your heels as an adjective. As a noun, the word is informal, it's colloquial, and if you look it up in the dictionary, it's considered a humorous word. And my feeling was that if somebody had to enforce the word inappropriate posterior coverage, they may have issues because there could be pushback. In actuality, colloquially, posterior is a euphemism for somebody's buttocks, which is basically your sacrum to your basically gluteal folds. And without getting into the anatomy lesson here, I think if somebody needs to enforce this, it's better to make it explicit rather than implicit, because this could become contentious. So 2 general changes in that. 1, make it more general neutral in terms of who this is directed to, in terms of garments, and the other is be more explicit in terms of what do you really mean when you use the word posterior. So my suggestion for the latter would be posterior, i.e. buttocks. I.e. means that is, and it's usually used in English language to be a modifier to make something specific. So those would be my 2 words to change of that. And if you choose to.
That great clarity. Yeah, I agree with that.
There's no substantive concern in terms of administering the policy.
Yeah.
That's fine. Fair enough. So are we comfortable amending that based on John's comments? Great. Any other comments related to the proposed changes in the dress code? All right, then we'll move on to the section pertaining to the use of cell phones. So under letter B, adding a 4th qualifier, violating the district's expectations related to the acceptable use of cell phones during the school day, as outlined in the student's handbook specifically. All student cell phones, smartwatches, personal computers, tablets, and smart glasses must be silenced and stored in the student's locker by the first bell at 8:15 and remain in the locker during school hours. Cell phones and smartwatches are not allowed until the end of the school day after 2:49 p.m. Cell phones are considered an electronic backpack and can be subject to a search by administration when there is reasonable suspicion of a code content violation. And elementary school students may only use their device in the morning before school begins up until 7:45 a.m. That is the cell phone provision that's up for consideration. Any comments, thoughts, suggestions with regards to that?
I have a hard time reading the sentence that's in letter B, number 4. It says specifically all students. Right above middle and high school students. The first green line.
Oh yeah, the flow from having the middle and high school students there instead of specifically all student cell phones.
All
Right.
students with a singular student and an apostrophe. I don't know where that goes. Does it go to cell phones?
It does on the next page. At least I have a printout, so I don't have the. How does that flow
I think
from
it
there?
just runs into the next middle and high school students paragraph.
Right.
We could lose all students though, and just have specifically colon middle high school students, and then the recommendation that reads better, Don. anything else pertaining to the cell phone language? Okay, and then the last provision in that same document pertains to academic honesty. Academic honesty and individual efforts are fundamental values of the district. All students' research work should conform rigorously to accepted standards of citations and appropriation. Students should realize that demonstrating integrity is something that must be worked on consistently. Students caught cheating on an exam or plagiarizing to steal and pass off as one's own ideas or words of another will receive 0 on their examination or project and be referred for disciplinary action. Completion submission of student work with content generated exclusively by artificial intelligence is a form of academic dishonesty and will be addressed as a plagiarism violation. When the student's use of AI is permitted by a teacher, permission will be clearly stated in an assignment prompt. Students who submit work that has been altered through the use of generative AI should indicate at the bottom of the assignment which tool was used and describe how it was used to complete the assignment. Any comments, suggestions for the academic honesty provision? Okay. All right, so those are the recommended changes. Let me just format here. Okay, so before we begin the public comment phase of the meeting, and thank you to our guests, I appreciate you coming. Just a few notes here. We did receive 5 written correspondences that the board can see in the content. 4 letters indicating support for the policy of the cell phone prohibition, and 1 advocating for a measured approach, as you can see in the first attachment there. Okay, so now we'll move to the public comment portion of the meeting. This is an opportunity for those in attendance to speak on this topic. So a public comment period not to exceed 30 minutes has been provided by the board. Speakers should state their name and sign into the meeting. Speakers must limit their comments to no more than 5 minutes. The district clerk will provide the speaker with a reminder by tapping on the table 3 times when only 30 seconds of time remains, and will notify the speaker and board when 5 minutes has elapsed. Madam President, when you're ready to comment, we can go.
So are there individuals in our audience that have comments that they'd like to make today? If so, feel free to step forward or.
We should go in order.
More comfortable with. Okay,
Find out.
Karen has the list, so.
Okay, Abby first, please.
Where should I sit?
Stand by the table.
Hello, Board of Education. My name is Abby Light, and I'm about to be a senior here at Lake Placid High School. You may remember me from a few years ago when I was a freshman and I came to speak about the dress code. I am back here again to make some of the same points I made and to make sure that I can do whatever I can to ensure that students have a say in what's going on. Smartphones may seem to be a distraction, but just because some kids abuse the privilege of having them doesn't mean all students should have to deal with those consequences. Times are changing, and smartphones are a big part of society nowadays. We have been living with them for many years and have had them in school for some time as well. I realize other schools are changing their policies on phones, but changing ours might be a bad idea. There are plenty of valid reasons for why the smartphone policies should stay the way it is. First off, my classes in the past, and most likely this upcoming school year too, I have had to use my phone to submit homework or use a calculator. For the past 4 years, I've had to use my phone to turn in homework, specifically my math homework. Most of the homework is on paper, but it gets graded and turned in electronically. The computer's camera that we have on our Chromebooks doesn't work to upload these because it's only a front-sided camera. The computer's camera doesn't work, so we use our phones, and using our phones to turn in this homework allows us to turn it in whenever we get it done. I have also had many times where I needed a calculator in class and had to use my phone with the teacher's permission. There are free apps such as Desmos, which allow students to complete graphing and regular calculations, which some of you in the school's calculators cannot do the graphing that we need. This is very helpful when a classroom doesn't have the calculators needed or they're all being used. All of these things are done with the teacher's permission and they don't cause problems in the classroom. Another reason I think this new phone policy should not be enacted is because of students contacting home and participating in sports. There have been plenty of times in school where I didn't know how I was getting home or who was going to come pick me up. Without phones, I would need to ask to leave class, go to the office, call my parents, and hope they pick up and have an answer for me. If I had my phone on my person, I could ask for my teacher's permission, then quickly text my parents at an appropriate time. This way, if they don't know right away, they could text me back later and let me know what the answer is. The office is also already busy enough as it is. They don't need 20 kids leaving class and going every 10 minutes to call their parents when a simple quick text could solve the issue. The same thing goes for students that participate in sports as well. In doing sports throughout my high school years, there have been many times where I forgot a jersey, socks, or my shin guards. A quick text permitted by my teacher to one of my parents before they leave the house could be the difference between me being able to play in a game or not. If I have to wait for a time to leave the classroom to go call, it might be too late, and it will just annoy the teachers if I'm asking to leave the classroom. For sports as well, many coaches use text messages to reach their players quickly with immediate changes. Players being able to get that information from their coaches quickly could be the difference between a student missing the bus or their class that they may have left early when they didn't have to leave because of a time change that they didn't know about. Also, study halls and lunch times are students' free time. If all work is complete or if a student wants to listen to music as a little brain break from school, they should be given that choice after the 7 hours they're there all day. And then also, with dangers in schools, such as school shootings or threats, it is even more important for students to be able to have their phones on them. When I was in 6th grade, my school went into a lockdown for a threat that was unknown to almost everyone in the school at the time. We were stuck in a room for an hour with no information on what was happening. We heard helicopters outside our building and footsteps outside my door. The threat never really came close enough to us to harm anybody in the school, but we didn't know that because we had no form of communication with us. Although, because of communication outside of the school, on Facebook and the internet, parents and others knew about it before the teachers even did. This led to the school trying to get a student out of my room so they could get picked up. Well, none of us knew there wasn't actually a direct threat. If this were to happen again, I would feel much more comfortable knowing I had my phone on me to text my parents or call 911 so I wasn't so scared. If that student would have been able to text their parents saying they were safe, it could have stopped the unnecessary pickup and fear that came from it when someone tried to get into our room. I also talked to a 911 dispatcher from the Ogdensburg, Messina area recently. When talking to them about this new possible phone policy, they told me, based on their professional experience, that it's actually more beneficial for students to have their phones in a dangerous situation. They said it's easier for students to be able to call for help and let the teacher worry about what's happening instead of clogging up the school phone that may be necessary to call the office. I do understand that phones need to be regulated, but there could also be compromises like teachers collecting the phones at the beginning of class. I hope you take this into consideration. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jared, I appreciate it. Next is Frank Brunner.
Hello, I'm back. I'm Frank Brunner. I teach at the middle school and the high school, calculus, physics, 12th grade English, chemistry, 7th grade algebra, taught a lot last year. So about a month ago, I gave you guys a 10,000 word document and haven't heard anything. Nobody asked any questions or offered any feedback or comments. So I'm always here, even after tonight. If you guys want my 10,000 words, happy to share. So I'm just going to recap that, and then I've got a new thing for you too. So to recap, why do kids need cell phones? It's maybe hard to imagine if you're not in the building every day, but the closest you can approximate it is the next time you pick up your cell phone, ask yourself why you're not picking up a Chromebook. Right? I mean, all the same reasons you need a phone, that's the same reasons that kids in our high school need a smartphone. Number two, many students' only contact during the day with a friend is via their cell phone. That's just a fact. You can't change it. It's not going to change. That's their only way to talk to a friend during the school day is through their cell phone. Number three, safety. Abby made a great point about that with school crises and things like that. Number four, coordination with family, just like Abby said. Number five, vastly increased learning. Number six, accelerometers. Colorimetry in physics, accelerometers, frequency generation, video analysis in physics, all these things that we never had access to and we won't have access to if cell phones are not allowed in the classroom. Number seven, peace of mind. There is a big reason why we pay a lot of money for insurance, right? You've got a sick relative, you got a family court case going on. Cell phone needed in class right there. That's why we have them, right? So that's it. Number eight. A lot of the learning in our schools is done by the top whatever percentage you're going to talk about, and those kids use their phones as tutors. They go on, they look things up, all right? They go past the teachers. I've been there, I see kids racing ahead to look things up. Taking away a cell phone from them is like taking away the one-on-one assistant from a special ed kid. It goes against all best pedagogical practices. It's not how things should be done. We need to differentiate instruction. We need to allow for differentiated learning, and cell phones are the best tool. If somebody from 1950s came here and they said, you got these tools with the entire world's knowledge in your pocket, and it talks to you, and kids like to use them, and you're banning them from schools, they would think we are out of our minds. They are super important. Finally, number 9, there is no evidence, guys. This is a rush to judgment. This is a panic. This is like new math after Sputnik. This is like whole language after A Nation at Risk. People are jumping on the bandwagon. It's a couple of guys like John Haidt and his coterie of people down there at NYU who are saying, guys, look at this. Well, if you look at it, there's just nothing there. All right, now that leads me to my second thing, my new thing. How much time do I have?
2 minutes.
Okay, so you guys probably don't know who David Deutsch is. He's the father of quantum computing. He was lamenting, like a lot of public intellectuals are, almost all of them, online about this panic. And David Deutsch said, you know, what's going on? And I talked to him and I said, hey, I got his attention. I said, I've got this meeting coming up. What can I say? And he said, well, you know, all these things. And I said, okay, give me something new. And he said, all right, here it is. He said, tell the board, windows, I'm quoting here, I wrote this down, windows, shutter them, blinkers, like the kind that we put on horses, put them on the kids, reins, put them on the kids, and make the board tell you why we don't do that. So are you thinking, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? And he said, some of the board might have rich inner lives. That's a quote, rich inner lives. So please make sure that everybody's paying attention. Why don't we do that? A few years ago in COVID, we had borders around each seat. Why don't we put up curtains around there? I was talking to a reporter from National Public Radio. She said, isn't it great if we ban cell phones? How much time? If we ban cell phones, okay, well, then kids won't have to worry about them being taped and put online and other kids snickering at them. Well, so why don't we put up curtains in there? Why don't we do that? Isn't banning cell phones the same thing as cutting kids off from that? Isn't banning cell phones the same thing as cutting down the interactions? And isn't it that the costs outweigh the benefits? And the last thing is, I know a lot of people, our hearts are in other places. We want our childhood to go back to the way it was, but technology isn't going to do that. The biggest change from the 1970s, 1980s, I grew up then, it was awesome, but the biggest change isn't technological. We can't go back by banning cell phones. The biggest change is sociological. The moms were at home. There were families there. There were kids to play with on the streets. That doesn't happen anymore. And banning cell phones isn't going to dial the clock back. In fact, banning cell phones will cut kids off from their parents even more. It will cut kids off from their fellow students even more. It will make childhood less like it used to be. So if you want that, then vote for the policy. Not, I would say, don't rush to judgment. Let it be. Think about it. Thank you.
Leanne Colby.
Kind of hard to follow Frank, but. I understand that the cell phones can be a distraction. Again, I think there should be some parameters for them. And, you know, be it that they're in their locker all day, whatever. I don't even want to get into that aspect of it. The very last sentence about the electronic backpack can be subject to a search by administration when there is reasonable suspicion of a code of conduct violation. I really don't like that wording. I understand that if this policy goes in, but reasonable suspicion is, I'm sorry, but you know, if a teacher's having a bad day and Addie grabs her cell phone between periods, you know, is that enough for someone to say, okay, Addie violated cell phone policy. I'm going to search her phone. And who searches the phone? Which part of administration, the teachers, the, you know, is a parent contacted? Is this a first violation or is it a third violation? I guess I'm just looking for, if you're moving forward with this policy, I'm looking for some additional wording. Okay, kind of like, you know, like police officers, we can't just search, right, probable cause more so than reasonable suspicion. So That's all I have.
Aurora Brumman? You're not gonna speak? No, I sounded like one. Oh, that's okay. How about Ellie? You're not gonna speak either? Liam?
Yep.
Okay. Liam, you're on.
I'm Liam McGahee. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Liam McGahee. I'm a former student of the Lake Placid Central School District for 7 years, from kindergarten to 7th grade. I'm a current student at the Northwood School, going into my sophomore year, just finished up my freshman year. And I'd like to start off by quoting something, a poem called Witch Hunt. And part of that poem goes, quick to judge, quick to anger, and quick to shun. And that's what I feel like that this school board is doing with the cell phones right now. We're hopping on the bandwagon of, hey, let's ban cell phones. It's a bad idea. We need to take it away from our students without any real reason or evidence, like Mr. Brunner talked about. A big reason why I came to Northwood is because of their openness towards technology in the classroom. We use great graphing calculators. We're allowed to use our laptops in class for study materials. The teachers even make online study sets. Like, the entire thing or demeanor about technology is completely different from this school district. And I'm not going to talk for very long, but I also like to add that the more you restrict cell phone use, the more kids are going to figure out ways to get around it. It's just the truth. Our students here are very smart, they're savvy, and they're very technologically, at least. And the more you restrict the cell phone policies, the more kids are going to be able to figure out how to get around it. So you're going to have an even bigger problem on your hands the more you restrict it. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Liam. Thank you.
Before we close the hearing, if you don't mind, Colleen. Hearings are opportunities for students, families, members of the public to lodge comment. Our protocols with regards to board policy, it's not necessarily an interactive process, but in that there's not a give and take in the moment. But we do have a portion of our meetings information for the public. So at our next meeting, September 3rd, anything that the board and administration respond to pertaining to the comments put forth here today, you can expect to see a response to those, just for specific things that were brought forward. Just to let you know that it doesn't go in one ear and out the other. It's just that the hearing is designed to lodge comment, and then for the board to reflect on those things and to communicate back as needed.
Okay, so we are going to start our regular board meeting. You're certainly invited to sit through the regular board meeting with us, or you're certainly, able to get up and take off if you'd like to and enjoy the evening. Thanks so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order, our regular board meeting, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to consent agenda. Mine is not open, okay. Recommended action, approve the items below which are included in the consent agenda. 5A minutes, 7A setting of tax levy and signing of tax warrants. 7C resolution for the disposal of personal property. And 7D special education. May I have a motion, please?
I move it. Second.
Any discussion? Please vote.
Seven yes.
Moving on to the good of the cause. Public may address the board. Is there anything in emails, Karen?
No.
information for the public. Moving on to reports, information for the board. There are several items in the executive content for you to review at your leisure. And I think later in the meeting that we're going to be talking a little bit about our board goals and discussion phase. So those are there for you to read over, and one of them at least we'll talk about later, if not two. Superintendent's report.
So today was a fun day in the district. It's our new employee orientation that we do each summer in preparation for the start of the school year. So we were able to start off with members of the administrative team, our union presidents from both the LPEA and the CSEA, and Colleen joined us in her role as board president to greet all of our new entrants to the district. So we have 7 new educators joining us this year. And their mentors were also able to attend and spend the day with us, which was great. So during the course of the day, we toured both instructional buildings. We went to the North Alba Historical Society and learned a bit about the history of our centralized school system, which was very fun. We visited the Sky Ride at the ski jumps and got a great picture of everyone, which I have for Karen to put on the website to, in keeping with our good practice there. And we did a bus tour of the district. We went through the notch and got to tour all aspects of Wilmington, and we went all throughout North Alba and Lake Placid. And then we had a nice lunch at Big Slide. So all told, a good tradition, and we really have just a great crop of new educators joining us this year. It's just a really great group. So thanks to everyone who helped to organize that, especially Lauren St. Louis and Keith Clark for their leadership with regards to that. Moving on, last week was in my eyes kind of the starting gun of the instructional planning phase of our summer and school year. This is when our department leaders and administration met at the elementary school, and we talked about our goals for the year. So just to recap, we have 14 different department leaders spanning different content areas and buildings, and in some instances, like our specials, they bridge different buildings. So we have like a K through 12 art and music department that allows teachers who may be more siloed to interact with one another throughout the school year. And our department leaders basically lead our continuous goal setting process that we have. So each year departments meet, they identify an instructional challenge that they have picked up on through the data, through the interactions with students. They investigate different strategies to implement to address the challenge. They really hone in on one particular strategy. They implement it and measure it. And then in May, we have a half day where we gather and share the results of our initiatives. And it's now entering into its 3rd year, and it's been really nice just to hear this. So we had great dialogue, and one of the things that came out of our meeting this time was that the past 2 times we've done this day where we share, we have had our teaching assistants sit at tables with the teachers that they collaborate with the most, but they don't necessarily engage with the goal setting process through the duration of the school year. And so this year, we're going to be folding our teaching assistants into this process too. So it'll be much more collaborative, and hopefully we'll continue to increase the agency of some of the hardest working people in the district. So I'm really excited to see that come to fruition. Our opening days are being finalized. So the welcome back to school letters for families will be sent out over the next couple of days. And the welcome back to school letter for staff will be sent out as well. So our school year starts on September 3rd for staff, and in info for the board, there is a copy of the agenda for the day. All of the board is invited to attend the opening breakfast and the welcome convening in the auditorium. It's a nice opportunity for us all to gather and for everyone to take a moment to recognize the different roles that everyone plays in the instruction of our kids. And our focus for the start of the school year in terms of the 2 days of professional development, we have a few sessions on artificial intelligence. So we're going to be rolling out a program called Brisk, which is a Google plugin that allows for teachers to have greater assistance with lesson planning and providing feedback to kids and assigning tutors to students in very specific ways. So that will be beneficial. And then a bulk of the work at the elementary school will be about promoting the science of reading. So we have the launching of our K-6 ELA curriculum this year in its entirety. And so there'll be a fair amount of professional development over the course of the year to support that. Summer enrichment camps, as the summer school and extended school year camps classes finalized, we're now switching to just the pure enrichment side of the house. So we have 5 different camps that are going to take place next week for students in grades kindergarten through 8. So we have a kindergarten camp to welcome our newest kindergartners, our STEM camp for grades 1 and 2, a sports camp for grades 3 through 5, and a robotics camp for grades 6 through 8. So we're excited to see all of those take place for a second year. Our fall sports season kicks off on August 26th. There's a parent meeting and a coach meeting on August 22nd to discuss our athletic code of conduct and our expectations for our students. Mr. Nemec, our athletic director, will be walking all of the staff and the students and parents through that process. So we're looking forward to see athletic contests resume. And then when we talk about preparations for getting the students ready to feel comfortable for the start of school, we have our middle school locker day, which takes place on August 28th from 10 to 2. And our elementary students will have open house on September 4th from 5 to 7. And there's a little bit of a change from previous years. Usually what happens is we have the Labor Day holiday, and then we have the start of school for staff, and we have our board meeting that evening. And that has conflicted with the elementary school open house. So we've opted to have the board meeting, as we always do, on the Tuesday, and then the open house will be the following night. So there'll be a little less overlap, more opportunity for people to attend both if they so wish. And just a final note, I believe I had reference to the board in some of the information in previous meetings, but we did have the resignation of Peter Lynch, who was our BOCES board member in the spring. Peter dutifully served the interests of Lake Placid to the BOCES board for 2 years. So we certainly thank Peter for all of his hard work. With that position open, I'm very pleased to say that Lake Placid will have an appointee to fill that seat for the remainder of the year. So Joanne Williams on this Thursday will be appointed as Lake Placid's rep to the BOCES board. So Joanne is now retired counselor from the Adirondack Education Center, but someone who is very steeped in supporting the BOCES and career and college readiness for students. So we're excited to have someone representing our interests in that platform. And that is my report.
Great. Any questions or comments for Tim? Great, thank you. Minutes of the Board of Education was consent. Moving on to personnel. Recommended action to approve the following items which are included in the consent agenda. 6B, long-term teaching staff appointment. 6C, CSEA appointment. 6D, appointment of mentors for 24-25. 6E, coaching staff appointment, fall 2024. And 6F, CSEA resignation. 6G, CSEA resignation. Do I have a motion? You think it was John and Colleen. Okay.
I'll figure.
I don't care. Any kind of discussion in regard to any of those items?
Real quickly, I'm looking at your coaches and you have boys and girls modified cross country rate the same as varsity rates. 57.15. I don't think it would be less if it's modified.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'll fix it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Good catch, Dana.
Please vote.
7 yes.
All right, and if I may just to contextualize what was in the personnel consent. So congratulations to Madeline Gay for her appointment as a long-term sub for the year in 6th grade English. Congratulations to Jasmine Secunjanen in joining us as a custodian at the middle high school. And thank you to Katie Corson and Nevaeh Whedon for their service to the district, and we wish them the best of luck in their future endeavors.
Thank you, Tim. Moving on to other action items, 7A, 7C, and 7D were all consent. 7B, recommended action, be it resolved that having given the public an opportunity to be heard at a public meeting, Board of Education affirmatively votes to amend policy number 5300 entitled Code of Conduct as attached. In accordance with policy number 2410, the Board of Education may waive the second reading and complete the adoption of the proposed amended policy at its first reading. Therefore, the Board of Education herewith waives the second reading of the attached policy number 5300 and immediately adopts said policy effective August 14th, 2024. May I have a motion, please?
I move it.
Who is the second?
Tim
Me.
and Ron and Ryan.
You're using your little voice.
Sorry.
Any further discussion?
I guess the only thing that I would add on here to the end is with the recommended changes
Okay,
that we had discussed in the discussion part.
okay,
And I'll just add that to the end with the
Okay.
recommended changes.
okay.
Okay, is that okay?
I think so, Tim.
Yes, that's
Okay. There's no discussion, please vote.
I did not come up.
No,
Yeah, mine's been slow tonight. What's going on again?
do you want to tell me what your vote is? Yes.
I,
7 yes.
Moving on to the discussion phase. The first are committee appointments, which is an exciting part of our meeting where everyone gets to volunteer for extra duties. Right, Ron?
Yes. And on the heels of such a fun day for you both, I'm sure.
Yes,
Uh,
we're on the audit committee already.
Yes,
yeah,
golly,
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
riveting today, I
It
must
was,
say,
it was.
riveting.
I left there with just, my
Ay,
mind
ay, ay.
was overflowing.
That's a
with
committee where
figures.
boring is good, just to qualify
Yeah.
that.
So, we're a done deal.
Yeah, we are.
Then we're great.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that you guys are designees for the audit committee, but if you need some help, or a substitute, I would
Okay,
go for that.
The
So,
audit committee?
yeah.
good job, that's great.
That's good.
I would volunteer to stay on school and building safety too,
Excellent.
as well.
Okay.
Over the, what was I on? But we haven't met
We haven't met in a while with policy.
policy. yet.
Yes. Are you comfortable continuing?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
I would serve on policy if there's an opening.
That would be great.
Great.
There's always.
All right.
All this volunteerism.
Yes.
I'll serve on those, building and grounds again.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Doug. Okay, and you are always allowed to redact your name too. This isn't a pure addition game, so.
Oh, they're never getting out of it once they
Oh, okay.
volunteer.
Please strike that from the record.
I'm teasing.
So
No,
Ron,
we appreciate everyone stepping forward. It's awesome.
so Ron, you were on the policy committee. Do you want to be off and stay on the audit?
I'd rather be on the policy. I'll
You
stick with,
want to stay on both?
yes,
That's okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that.
thank you.
Okay,
So the next item on our discussion is review of the board objectives for 23-24. and timeline for the 24-25 year. And I think that Karen has sent this out to us previously to look over our goals. Some people have made some changes and
So
Not
in,
sure.
there's a link to them that's also up on my board, but it's in the
Yes.
agenda part
okay.
that you can click on and open it up and look through.
So I'm not sure. I mean, there have been some comments made. I'm not sure where we go from there or what we discuss. I think there's 3 or 4 people that have made some comments. So Tim, I'm not.
Sure. Yeah, so we can just have a dialogue about some of these things, just so we can move the ball, if that sounds good, and then that will keep us on pace to have a good collection for consideration for our September meetings, if the board's comfortable with that. Awesome. So let's see. All right, now, just a qualifier. If there are not comments on a particular bullet, is that a suggestion of continuation on the part of the board, or are these just additional items for consideration?
A few of my comments were just to be aware that maybe we could add a little something in there extra. You know, for example, utilizing community schools to help fund some of those additional experiences.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's a possibility or not, if some of the funding could come from there. So these were just suggestions.
Okay. So I think with some of these particular comments, because some of them are a little in the weeds, I'm happy to draft some responses for these, and
Okay.
it'll give some time for us to reflect on those.
That would be great, Tim.
Awesome. But also, as formulaic as this process may seem, like these are your goals too. So,
Yeah.
you know, feel free if there are things that are top of mind for any of you in your respective roles or backgrounds to bring those to the fore, and you can continue with that.
I think it was really helpful, the way that you presented this to
It
us.
was.
I mean, it was very helpful.
Very
Okay.
good.
I appreciate that.
Awesome.
That opening note to you, Tim, that I
Yes.
wrote, it doesn't have to be addressed now, but sometime soon, I want to hear how you feel the pulse of things around here.
Yeah, and we built that into our strategic plan. So we have the same annual surveys that we provide.
Yeah.
And then the other primary mechanism is we meet with all of the different staff in the midpoint of the year. And it's called like future planning, and we spend a full week just feeling things out with them. And so we try and triangulate some of that information, but I'll see if I can codify that a little easier for you.
That's great. Thanks for all the comments in those sections. Moving on to the last item is the civics. I know Ron is very passionate about bringing this back, and Tim has offered, based on his previous teaching background, to kind of take this on. And I do think it's an exciting topic and something that should be brought back. So whoever has comments or thoughts on that.
You know, my view, I kind of said in an email, so I think it's very, very important that our young people learn how our government functions and the role of each branch of government. I just think it's critical.
Are there mandates from above that tell the school how to do this or how much to do?
That's a good question.
There are, yes. So there's a link in the executive content, and that is a link to the state education department's recent civic readiness initiative. Now that is kind of a value add initiative. Doesn't speak to the minimal requirements that are there. So the overall requirements are found in the social study standards. So the social study standards, they stream throughout K through 12, And those have not changed fundamentally over the past several years, but they are all anchored in these same sentiments. Dana, I know you, as a former social studies teacher, remember they used to have specific like themes like power, economics, governance, and within those, they would be assigned on a curricular scale within the grade range. So the answer is yes. All right, it's a core component of all social studies instruction across the litany of the students' education. What I particularly like about the Civic Readiness Initiative is I think it provides us two opportunities. So the first is I like the way that they really isolate the different domains of what civic knowledge looks like. Civic knowledge, civic skills and action, mindsets and experiences, and then they give very specific bullet points. So I think that's beneficial because seeing is believing. I think the only way that the board is going to gain a true appreciation for what we do is if we roadmap it. And so what I would like to do is to use this framework and work with the administration and the staff to identify all of the different areas in the curriculum and experiences and field trips that promote specific bullet points at different grade levels. And then with that, we can see if there are particular gaps so that would be beneficial, I think, is visually. But what I also like about this is if the board is truly interested in promoting civics as a cornerstone of our district, then there are the seal of civic readiness is a optional graduation component. Now, it is not a requirement, but it can sort of be looked at similar to our capstone project that we have for our seniors. So our seniors have public service and volunteer hour requirements in order to graduate. They have to do an individualized capstone project, which they research, implement, and then present on at the end of the year. That particular capstone experience is primarily based on student interest and does not necessarily have a civic component to it. And so one of the things that we could do over the course of this year is to gear up for the following year, because it takes time to do this properly, where when students select their senior capstone experience, they could have an option. And the option would be to pursue the seal of civic readiness. And in that, their capstone experience would be about diagnosing a problem at the local, state, or national or global level, and then researching it, proposing solutions, and presenting specifically on that problem. And so that's the more civic-oriented aspect of this. And in those presentations, they're very explicit about what action steps are permissible through law that allow people. So if it's a town issue, then what town board meetings did you go to learn about this issue and to lodge public comment? If it's a federal issue, then did you reach out to your congressperson, and et cetera. So it just sort of highlights those things. So if students completed that and they achieved the requisite points to achieve the seal, then it would be an additional feather in their cap, not dissimilar to an advanced regents diploma. Basically, the seal would be on their diploma. So this is a new initiative that's been in place for 2 years. Presently, Tupper Lake, Chateauguay Central School I believe, are the 2 districts within our region that have implemented the Civic Readiness Initiative. So I think this provides 2 options, just as, because I mean, this could be kind of a monolithic topic, is like to what extent we really gauge this. But I think if we could, through the course of this year, provide you with a very clear roadmap of what we do and gear up for the potential for students who are civically minded to achieve this additional pathway for the following year, it could be a viable path to pursue this.
Could it also just be an elective, Tim, where it's not linked in with the capstone project?
That's a good question. I mean, theoretically, to your point, yeah, a student could pursue multiple. Theoretically, they could do 2 different capstones. It's ironic they use the same terminology for the culminating project as a capstone, just the same that we do. So it's possible that somebody who's interested in welding could do an internship with welder and do their capstone like that they always done, but have also address a civic issue.
Right.
And so in that sense, it could absolutely be the case.
Okay.
And senior schedules can permit for that depending
No,
on. what
absolutely.
someone
Well,
has.
those are great ideas, for sure.
John?
Yeah, what I don't have a feel for is what types of things are being taught in what grade, for how long, are these mandatory versus electives? And I don't know whether it's a chart or an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, because that just tells us where we are now. And then we have this to say what might be on the horizon. And I think we need both of those pieces, but I think the easiest place to start is, what do we do now?
Sure.
Yeah, I
And-
think Tim was going to.
That's the
give us that
roadmap.
this year.
Yeah, and I think you used the word roadmap.
Yeah.
I think we're thinking the same.
I think
thing.
that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think so too.
And, you know, even though some things, you know, maybe on these, 100,000-foot guidelines, we may feel that, no, we don't want to go that way, or, boy, we really need to do a lot of work. But I think, the starting point is where we are now.
Right.
And you've got this piece here too, so, yeah, I just can't get my arms around the whole thing yet.
And I think it can be in phases, John, so like,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
even in the earliest
Here.
phases, like, I'm happy to just pull up the K-12 spread of
Yeah.
what subject matter and standards are taught at different levels. And just so you can visualize that.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, what's required, what's, elective, how many hours per semester do they do this? And I just need to get my arms around where are we at right now? And I think that would be relatively easy to do. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think it'd be easy, but to the better point of road mapping this too, I think is like, rather than some sort of research project for me or the administration, which I'm always happy to do on behalf of the board, but like, to really build capacity, we have to work with our instructors.
Yeah, I realize that.
And so, I think if we make this a focus area, then it certainly legitimizes, this is a major priority of the district, particularly for this year. And, so that way, when the social department meets and discusses their goals for the year, they know that civics is a critical initiative for the district. And, when we're thinking about field trips and other things that we may not be doing, then, people are thinking in this vein. So.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that there's already essentially half the board
Mhm.
that says we need to get our arms around this and
Right.
provide focus and make sure we're doing the right things, for the kids, because and we've all started our comments is
Right.
there even adults who are
Oh, yeah.
well on in years who are clueless about what's going on.
That's got me started on
in
this.
the,
Or we all need a review.
Yeah.
That's why I did grade social studies numerous times. It was so important for me with helping out with Keith Clark. I learned so much more as an adult. Yeah, absolutely.
So does this look like something, any thoughts? Is this a direction that you would like me to move towards this year? Is that?
I think the roadmap would be very, very helpful in
Yes,
seeing
I
where
do
we
too.
are at right now.
And I think the standards too, having everybody see the standards too,
Yeah.
so if you're not familiar with them.
Sure. Great. And I may invite some colleagues into,
Oh, that's
to
great.
have them, give them an opportunity to shine a light on some of the things they do specifically.
No, absolutely, that's a great idea. Thank you. Moving on to adjournment, next meeting date and location, September 3rd. And I did want to bring up, I mentioned this briefly, to see or gauge the interest in switching our board meeting time to 5 p.m. Saranac Lake has their meetings at 5 p.m. I think there's a variety of reasons that might make sense. We avoid the sports evenings when people are coming in at 6 o'clock or whatever for parking. Winter meetings, we'd be here at 5 p.m. and not going home, coming back out on winter roads again at 6 o'clock. Many of us are leaving, maybe some of our jobs around that time of day where it's convenient just to pop in. And I think one of the bigger components that I've seen over the years on the board is that the number of times throughout the year where we have faculty that are coming to do presentations or students, and they're literally just hanging out until 6 o'clock at night to come over here where some of our faculty live out of the area that are traveling home on winter roads. And it may make sense, I'm for it. But I'd like to hear from everybody else if it's something you're interested in, and maybe we can try it and see how it goes.
I'm bored.
I think
that's a good
time.
Yeah.
I prefer 6, but can do 5.
Okay,
I could do either.
so shall we, not sure if we take a vote or what we do, Tim and Karen, but,
I think it's an official action.
no,
It's just
okay.
about a board preference.
So how about we start September 3rd at 5 PM?
Perfect.
Great. Thank you. Any old agenda topics? New ones? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
Second.
Ryan and Colleen. Please vote.
My computer's slow tonight.
No, I'm.
I am happy. Anyway, mine's not fine.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
I love that.
Aye.
Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Good input.